Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Mad Mag's podcast. A podcast where we talk about all types of media, including movies, TV shows, video games, and more. I'm your host, Magello, aka Mag, and today I'll be talking about 3 different movies directed by Damien Chazelle. These being Whiplash, La La Land, and the newer one that just kind of came out, Babylon. Alright, so let's just get right into this. So, the first one, I'll be going in order of which ones came out first to the last. So Whiplash is the first one. Came out in 2014. It is directed by, again, Damien Chazelle. And for all these movies and shows that I go through, I want to give the IMDb summary of the movie. Just a plot summary. So this is what it is. A promising young drummer enrolls at a cutthroat music conservatory where his dreams of greatness are mentored by an instructor who will stop at nothing to realize a student's potential. It's a pretty good summary, yeah. I'd applaud that summary. Pretty well done. So, for all these, I want to just go over the characters, the storyline, the acting, the directing, cinematography, setting, some key shots, and the score, and yeah, and just say what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and all that jazz. So let's start with the storyline. So, a little longer of a storyline, not just the IMDb one. It's about a character named Andrew Naiman who is at this conservatory, and he's in a lower band at the beginning of the movie. But one day, Fletcher, the J.K. Simmons guy, the crazy guy, needs a new person for his top band at Schaefer. And he's looking around, he's trying to find someone good enough, and he ultimately chooses Andrew Naiman to be his second key drummer. This is a huge deal for him because this is basically his dream. So stuff goes down, Fletcher throws some stuff, yells at some people, kicks some people out, all that jazz, and ultimately drives Andrew Naiman insane, and he ends up getting in a car crash, and then going to a concert and performs terribly at the concert, all because of the stress that's going on in his head. And the conclusion basically is he gets invited to another JVC thing with that Fletcher conducts, and he ends up performing amazingly. So, I think this is it's a pretty basic storyline, but it's actually pretty interesting. And it only works because of how interesting the characters are. And I think this movie has some of the most intriguing character studies I've ever seen in a movie before. I mean, you have this character who will do anything to achieve greatness, and then you have another character who will do anything to get someone to achieve greatness. So you have this sort of duo between Andrew Naiman and Terrence Fletcher, and it just sort of works. It's actually kind of impressive how well it works. I mean, Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons give off some crazy performances that definitely deserve the Grammy. The Oscar in 2014. But Birdman's a great movie, so you should also watch that if you haven't. There's also some side characters. Nicole is one of them, Andrew Naiman's girlfriend in the first half of the movie. And she gives off a pretty good performance. Nothing crazy, but she does a good job. And then you have the rest of the band members who all do their part, and they're all good. I don't think there's any bad acting really in this movie. I think it's all around pretty strong. So then you have the directing. The setting, of course, is Schaefer Conservatory, and this is in New York City. The whole thing pretty much takes place in New York City. And I think it's a pretty good setting. I mean, New York City is the kind of place that you go to and you don't feel very safe. It's not a very safe city. So it kind of could be a metaphor for the atmosphere of New York City is a metaphor of just the duo between Andrew and Fletcher. How it's just you don't really feel safe, but at the same time you just want to keep being there. That's just something I just thought of on the spot. It's not confirmed or anything, but I think the New York City the New York whatever setting is good, and it represents the movie very well. Then you have the cinematography, and oh my gosh, the cinematography in this movie is so good. Like it's honestly mind blowing. I mean, you have these darkish colors complemented by this like brightish yellow that kind of looks like the yellow of a symbol, and it just matches the movie so perfectly, and it brings out the characters' emotions and conflicts brilliantly. And then some key shots in the movie, I would say, are just the one like the shots or the whole scene of Andrew in the car talking to someone on the phone, like asking like, "Where are you? Where the heck are you?" And he's like, "I'm on my way. I'm on my way." And you had that whole conversation, which is really fun. But then again, the car crash happens, and that whole thing, the directing is just so good. Damien Giselle is just such a master of his craft, and the ending, obviously, where you have last 10 minutes of just no dialogue, and it's just him performing the drums, just blowing everyone's socks off, and even Terrence Fletcher is just astounded by how just incredible he is, how incredibly he's performing, and you have just the nod of a confirmation from Terrence Fletcher that he is the next Charlie Parker. It's so good. You don't need any dialogue. It's just it's one of the best endings I've ever seen. Damien Giselle just knows how to end a movie, and I'll be talking about this later in the La La Land and Babylon um, discussions, because all three of these movies just end so perfectly, and I don't know how he does it. Like I haven't seen First Man. I I will get to that one. If you're wondering where that is, I haven't seen it yet, and maybe I'll make an episode on that as well. But he's just so good at ending these movies. It's honestly just so impressive. And then you have the score, which is, in my opinion, probably his weakest. Justin Hurwitz, I mean, it's really great. It's still amazing, but it's it's not quite as good as La La Land's or Babylon's. It's very impressive still, and I really like it a lot. It has friggin' Caravan, which is a classic banger. Yeah, I don't really have many complaints about this movie. I think the one thing I would complain about really is that you don't get much development with Nicole's character or Nicole and Andrew, their relationship. It's just kind of, oh, he wants to go out, and then, oh, he wants to break up because he wants to focus on his performing. It's not. It's kind of rushed, and it's not the best. It could have been done a little better. But yeah, that's it. Really, that's all my like. That's my one complaint with the movie. It's pretty dang good. Like I'm gonna spoil all these movies because I want to talk about all of them. I want to talk about the beginning, the middle, the ending. I want to talk about everything. So if I spoiled this for you, haven't seen Whiplash, I'm sorry. But at the same time, why are you watching this if you haven't seen Whiplash? Go watch Whiplash if you haven't watched it, even though I have spoiled it for you, because it's freaking phenomenal. And if you, and basically at the end of all these movie reviews, I'm gonna be giving a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, and also a tier. And this is, in my opinion, a 10 out of 10 movie with an S tier ranking. I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it's one of the best movies of the 2010s. Yeah, it's just great. It's just great. I freaking love it. So yeah, that is my review of Whiplash. And now, moving right along, let's get to La La Land. Alright, so, La La Land. What is this movie all about? Again, it's directed by Damien Chazelle. If you haven't realized that all these movies are Damien Chazelle, I don't need to say it anymore. But yes, it is Damien Chazelle. And I will get to the storyline on IMDb, the plot summary, which is, while navigating their careers in Los Angeles, a pianist and an actress fall in love while attempting to reconcile their aspirations for the future. So, at first, like, if someone were to read this not knowing anything about the movie, they would just read this first and not see any trailers or whatever. Yeah, I don't think they would want to see it. It just seems like a basic kind of story. Two people meet, both pursuing what they want to pursue, falling in love. Yeah, it seems pretty by the books, but if you, I mean, for me at least, I watched this movie. I think like when it first came out, I watched it in theaters. I was pretty young at the time. I probably fell asleep at the time, and I was so confused. I didn't get it. Of course, I was young, I was stupid, I was whatever. And yeah, but if you were to just read this without knowing anything about the movie, you probably wouldn't want to watch it. And I don't blame you. But if you do start it and you do watch it, you see that yeah, it's pretty freaking great. So this movie has two main actors, an actress and an actor, two main people. Like the last movie had two main people. These being Emma Stone as Mia Dolan and Ryan Gosling as Sebastian Wilder. These are the two people that meet and fall in love. Cool. All right. What is basically okay? So yeah, what is this movie? So it starts off with the song "Another Day's Sun," where you have all these cars on the streets, the busy streets of Los Angeles, and they all get out and they sing a musical number. It's wholesome, it's catchy, it's fun, and it sets the tone of the movie pretty perfectly. And then you have, yeah, basically Mia and Sebastian. They meet at this party, and yeah, that's where they meet, and they talk to each other, and they start kind of catching feelings for each other, but they're not willing to admit it yet. They start dancing in the street lights, and yeah, it's a pretty wholesome moment again. And throughout the movie, pretty much I guess the second act in the movie, the first act, which is when they meet. Second act is when they fall in love, and they go to the observatory. They look at the stars. They dance together again, and yeah, and then that's the second half. Basically, it's just them being together and wanting to pursue their dreams. Mia wants to be an actress and wants to make it big in Hollywood, and Sebastian just wants to be. He loves jazz. He wants to pursue jazz. He wants to perform at his own jazz place that he is planning to make. So, you have all this thing. It seems like they're gonna make their dreams. They're gonna live a happy life. Well, spoiler alert, they don't. And they actually don't, yeah, they don't pursue their dreams at the moment. And it's just seeming like they're gonna just end up living their lives with to, nothing behind them. No job, careers set up. And this is what kind of brings them apart. Mia wants to pursue acting, and Sebastian is just he's not getting it. He wants to pursue his jazz thing, but then he gets another deal from someone else that's like trying to modernize jazz. This freaking John Legend character, and Mia is just confused because his whole thing was that he loved classic jazz and didn't want to pursue modern jazz at all, and now he's wanting to pursue modern jazz just because of the money. They get in an argument, they fall apart. 5 years later, yes, 5 years later, this movie skips from 5 years, Mia is with someone else. And Sebastian is by himself, pretty much. But he has his own jazz place now called Seb's, and Mia has a husband with kids, or I think a kid maybe? I don't remember exactly. And yeah, Mia goes to Seb's on a whim with her husband, and she sees Sebastian, and the ending of the movie is what could have been, what could have been if they stayed together and were actually passionate about each other. So let's get on to what I like about this movie and all that jazz. So the characters, the main ones, Mia and Sebastian, I think are great. I think they I think they're just perfect. I really love Mia's character. I think that Emma Stone does a great job of performing as this character who just wants to pursue acting and will do anything like she can to do it because that's what her dream is. The way that this movie is able to capture dreams and loss is just really relatable to me personally because I've had dreams in my life. I feel like everyone's had dreams in their life that they just that don't seem realistic, and maybe they're not. Maybe you won't ever get there, but maybe you will. And it's really interesting to see this character who doesn't exactly know if she will get there or if she won't. And yeah, I think Emma Stone does a great job. I think her acting is great. And then you have Ryan Gosling, who is one of my favorite modern actors right now, as this Sebastian character who loves jazz. I think he also does a pretty good job of performing as this character. And yeah, I think they also complement each other perfectly. They're great together. Yeah, and you have the side characters like John Legend's character Keith, who is this guy who the modern jazz guy, you know. And then you have J.K. Simmons again as the person at the bar who Ryan Gosling's character Sebastian formerly worked under at this this bar dinner place whatever, just performing some Christmas songs. He gets fired from that place. Yeah, but J.K. Simmons is fun. He's not in it for much, but I just wanted to give him a shout out because he's great. So yeah, I think the characters are great in this movie. And let's move on to the directing. The setting is Los Angeles, the city of angels. Maybe that's some metaphor for the movie. Probably not. Um, yeah, the setting is Hollywood, Los Angeles, the place where dreams come true. Not really at all. I've been there before. It's not great. But the cinematography makes you think that, wow, maybe dreams do come true. Because the cinematography is outstanding. And in my humble opinion, the best cinematography that I've ever seen in a movie, period. It's so good. Like it's so good. I can ramble on about the cinematography for hours. I won't because that'd be boring. But just the ending sequence, that whole sequence is so good. You have all the colors complementing each other. These characters just wanting to just be it's so good. It's great. Like I could just watch that ending so many times and not get bored of it. And then you have the score by Justin Hurwitz again. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's so good. You have all these original songs like Another Day of Sun, Someone in the Crowd, which I have on repeat all the time. You have the audition song, which is so powerful. It's probably my favorite part of the whole movie. Just Emma Stone's character Mia giving this ballad of her just wanting to achieve anything. It's so good, and then you have songs like the epilogue, the ending sequence, whatever. It's all great. Everything about this movie, this score wise, is fantastic, and Justin Hurwitz is a mastermind. And yeah, that is La La Land. If you don't know, the reason why I wanted to review this movie in particular is because it actually is my favorite movie of all time. Yeah, it is at the moment at least. Maybe that will change in a year's time or 2 years' time, whatever. For a while it was Fight Club. I'll get to Fight Club podcast in a little bit. But yeah, La La Land is currently my favorite movie of all time. I think it's pretty much a perfect movie if there was ever a perfect movie. And yeah, it really means the world to me. And of course, if it's my favorite movie, I'm gonna give it an S tier, 10 out of 10. So right now, Damien Chazelle is 2 for 2 in the 10 out of 10s because yeah, both the movies are just fantastic, and I could watch them all the time. All right, so that was La La Land. Okay, so the last movie I want to talk about is Babylon, which came out a couple weeks ago. And again, I'm gonna preface this right now. I will be spoiling it, and I know I already spoiled the first two, but this one especially because I know a lot of people haven't seen it, and they might just be watching it for La La Land and Whiplash, and maybe they just want to have a summary of what I think about Babylon. Well, I am probably gonna be spoiling it. So if you don't like spoilers, click off now or skip to the end, whatever. If you have seen it, let's get to it. All right, so the storyline for on IMDb, the plot summary, is as the following. A tale of outsized ambition and outrageous excess, it traces the rise and fall of multiple characters during an era of unbridled decadence and depravity in early Hollywood. Yeah, it's that's pretty good. That's a pretty good plot summary, and summarizes the movie. Not great because this movie is huge. I mean, like the first 10 minutes, like you have this guy who's just he gets an elephant for this huge party for all these actors and actresses, and like he just gets he brings this elephant to the place, and it's so funny. That whole sequence at the beginning is just so funny. It's so dumb, but it's so good. So yeah, this movie is absolutely insane, and I freaking love it. Okay, so you have the main characters in this movie are Margot Robbie's character, Nellie Leroy, who is this character who just wants to, kind of like Emma Stone's character in La La Land, just wants to be an actress, wants to make it huge, but is the exact opposite of Emma Stone's character in La La Land because she is just so much crazier and so much like, and just so funny. She's terrible, but she's so funny. Then you have Diego Calva, who I have never seen in another movie before. His character is Manny Torres, and I think he's actually the highlight of the movie for me. His performance is really good, and I'm excited to see what else he does in the future, in different movies. He plays this guy who, yeah, he brings the elephant to the party, and like he plays this guy who just somehow makes it huge in the acting business somehow. Like he's just nobody and then goes to this one party and now he's just like this huge guy. It's pretty funny. And then you have the last main character, which is Brad Pitt's character, Conrad, and he's this guy. He's been in the acting business for a while, and he's also so funny. Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt they're too hilarious. Their duo is so good. Yeah, but Brad Pitt's character, he's been in the acting business for a while, and he just wants to also be someone. Everyone in this movie just wants to be better than who they are at the moment, and it's kind of just this endless strive for power, maybe money, maybe just being better. But at the same time, they just get so much worse, and like they get worse and worse throughout the movie. But it's so funny. I've been saying it's so funny. That's pretty much my summary for this movie. It's just funny. A lot of this isn't really meant to be taken seriously, and if you take it seriously, I don't think you're gonna get as much enjoyment out of it. But if you just go in expecting just a fun time, you're gonna get it. It's a fun movie. I don't want to really talk about everything in this movie because when I finished this, I was so exhausted. Like a movie has never made me so exhausted after like, yeah. Let me rephrase that. I've never been so exhausted after a movie than I was after watching Babylon. I watched it with two of my friends in the theater, and in the first like 20 to 30 minutes, it was just so much randomness and craziness, and I debated on leaving. I was like, what am I watching? Why am I watching this? I'm gonna leave. But I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't because it's really good. There's a couple points I want to highlight throughout the movie, some plot or some scenes I want to highlight, some sequences. The first one I want to highlight is the first sequence when Margot Robbie gets the job as the actress and goes to this place in like just in the middle of nowhere with just like this whole army scene going on. Like it's so chaotic, but it's so like well done. It's so funny because Damien Chazelle has this huge budget that he got for this movie, and he used it so much to his advantage, and yeah, but that whole sequence with like Margot Robbie's character and uh, what's his name, Manny Torres trying to get the camera and just waiting for hours to try to get one camera to film this one scene, and then Jack Conrad getting this one perfect shot. It's so good, and just the yeah. Um, if you can't tell by now, this movie is just all over the place. And there's one more scene I want to highlight that really just is the cherry on top of the whole movie. It's actually when Tobey Maguire's character is introduced, and Tobey Maguire's character, what's his name? Um, um, James McKay. This guy is he's so he has these this yellow teeth that just look terrible, and he's like this big like rich guy who Nellie Leroy apparently owes a bunch of money to. Like she's in debt, and he has this weird voice, and like he takes Manny because Manny goes to him to try to get them like to give him the money that Nelly owes to him, and he takes him down to the chamber. Oh, that whole sequence is so good. It's so funny. I can't honestly a lot of this movie I can't even like explain it. It's hard to explain because so much goes on in certain sequences, like certain scenes, that I can't even wrap my head around all of it. But honestly, it'd be best the best experience is just to I guess watch it again, I guess. Or if you haven't watched it and you're just watching this because you don't care about spoilers, I can't explain it well as you would be like just you're better off watching the movie and then coming back to this because it is a huge movie that is so hard to wrap my head around. So let's just get into the positives and the negatives. The acting is great. I think Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt, and especially um, Diego Calva, just their performances are so good. Uh, they're not deep characters. They're pretty surface level characters, but they're they're great. They're fun. Um, I think Tobey Maguire is hilarious, but also just super creepy and yeah, a little offsetting, but also just really disturbing. Yeah, but he's fun. There are some performances I'm not a huge fan of, just like some side characters, but I think overall the acting's pretty great in this movie. The directing is obviously fantastic. I mean, Damien Chazelle, his directing is just always so spot on, and it fits the movie. Each movie he does so perfectly. Cinematography is great too. It's nothing like La La Land or Whiplash is, but it has some pretty good shots, and especially the ending. The ending sort of blew my mind, and I still can't think I can't stop thinking about it because it's it's nothing like I've ever seen before. Really, the whole movie is nothing like I've ever seen anything like this before. But especially the ending, just all the different colors, and you had this character, the Manny guy who gets a vision of what movies are going to be like in the following years. And yeah, it's really, it's kind of just impressive. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't like the ending to this one, especially not as much as Whiplash or La La Land's, but I don't know. There's something charming about it, but also something kind of crazy about it. And I think it's no other movie would like could end that way besides Babylon. I feel like if you added that ending to any other movie, even about like movies about that like even that time like the 1920s and acting, it just wouldn't work. Damien Chazelle makes it work. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. Yeah, but there is so much to unpack with this movie. I can't do it all. I think maybe if I rewatched it, I could revisit this movie. But yeah, my last thing I would say is that my biggest complaint it really is that it's just huge. It's too big. It's it's kind of like my I have a similar complaint with The Wolf of Wall Street. I think The Wolf of Wall Street is a really great movie as well, but there's so much going on in so many sequences and scenes that it's so hard to keep track of. And just like thinking about how if you haven't seen this movie Babylon and you have seen The Wolf of Wall Street, just think about Wolf of Wall Street, but just times 10 in the craziness and the absurdity, and you get Babylon. Yeah, that's my biggest gripe is that, and the reason why I can't give it a perfect score is just because it's trying to balance way too many things, and I applaud it for that. I think Damien Chazelle does it fairly well. Like, it's not bad. It's not like amazing, but it's not definitely not bad. But at the same time, I don't think any director was ever going to be ready for a movie quite like this. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Babylon. For my rating, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10, and then like between an A and a B tier. I think leaning on an A minus maybe. So yeah, easily the worst Damien Chazelle movie I've seen, but not bad by a long shot. I think it's still great. I think yeah, I mean all these movies are great. I'm gonna get to First Man at some point, but yeah, Babylon. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. Just don't expect a masterpiece like La La Land or Whiplash. It's not that. It does have some pretty deep moments and some pretty groundbreaking moments, but it's no like it's not it's pretty surface level for the most part. And his other two movies are really deep and just crazy. Just crazy good the whole time, the whole way through. This movie, it's just fun. And if you want a fun time, if you're not looking for something where you have to think a lot or just if you just want a fun time, go watch it. And if you have seen it already, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so that was my first episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I'll be making more podcast episodes in the future with guest speakers coming soon. I know my Babylon review got kind of all over the place, but whatever. My thoughts on that movie haven't fully accumulated yet. And yeah, but yeah, I love all three of these movies. And again, if you haven't seen these movies and you're just watching because you don't care about spoilers or you just want to have some thoughts on what I think about them, if you're curious at all, go watch them. They're really great. La La Land especially, which is yeah my favorite movie. So yeah, like I said, I'll be having people on the podcast, multiple people. I think the maximum I'll have is like 3 to 4. Yeah, if you're interested, then leave a comment. I might get back to you, I might not, whatever. Yeah, that was the first episode, and be sure to, if you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and all that. If you're not on YouTube and you're on Spotify, follow me, and you will not be disappointed. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.